Hey guys, and today let's talk about the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Playing this spec, you can expect to have fantastic mobility, the best amongst all other things, a great mitigation between self-healing, physical damage reduction, magic damage reduction, and even absorbed that can soak up some pretty good damage if done correctly. All of that together makes up for a pretty good mitigation overall against any sorts of damage, along with a pretty good AoE and single target damage as well. A very versatile tank indeed. That said, on this guide we are not going to talk about tanking on itself, but yes on how the Vengeance spec works and what can you do with it. So I'm taking the liberty that you already know, the absolute basics, that is the role of tanking, such as aggro, mitigation, and all that basic stuff, okay? Now, I want to start explaining your abilities, talents, and what you should be doing, but before that, your artifact traits, and I'm going to go on a more in-depth explanation on them during the actual gameplay part of the guide, so everything is cohesive and I'm not just repeating myself, and to just get them out of the way now. So, if you're still building up your traits, you have in the background the path you should be taking. Your new traits, on the other hand, don't really change up too much and you want to get them as fast as you can. Then after, take this order of traits once you acquired all the 4 new ones, also in the background. On your talents, there isn't really a perfect build that you want to use all the time. The question you need to ask yourself is, what content am I going to be running? Is it a dungeon? Is it a raid? Do I have an easy time with this specific dungeon and I can go on a more offensive route? Do I want more AoE or extra defenses? If I'm raiding, am I going to need the extra protection against magic damage or in need of more AoE abilities if there's a lot of ads? Am I progressing through some tough raid boss and I'm going to take advantage of my last resort talent, basically giving me an extra life? Or I just want to have a good balance of all those things? This is most of the questions you should put to yourself when choosing your talents. So to optimize your tanking and just be a good Vengeance Demon Hunter, and obviously have some good fun, you are looking at changing your talents quite frequently. To make it simple as I can, I'm going to talk about the class in general and abilities first, then your talent combos you should be using in dungeons, raids, and other specific encounters. Then make up your own conclusion of when you should be using them, as it can vary depending on your character gear, your own skill level, or just your own personal fun. So how do your abilities work? How do they combo with each other? When is the best time to use one? And very importantly, why? Then go over your talents when we can properly understand the reasoning behind those choices and what they will do, okay? So your core gameplay. Your main focus in Vengeance is building up your 2 resources, Pain and Soul Fragments, so you can mitigate your damage taken. For that, we have 3 very important abilities: Shear, Soul Cleave, and Demon Spikes. Now, the way your mitigation works is through healing that Soul Cleave provides, along with the Soul Fragments, and just soaking up or reducing damage with Demon Spike. So with your Shear ability, you can start building up Pain and potentially some Soul Fragments. Shear is your main ability that you're always going to spam. Now, you want to waste that Pain to heal or prevent yourself from taking too much damage. So your Soul Cleave, it costs 30 to 60 Pain. The more Pain used, the more it heals. So optimally, you always want to use Soul Cleave with at least 60 Pain before using it, unless you really don't need the heals and just want the damage. Plus, it consumes all nearby Soul Fragments to a max of 5. Each Soul Fragment heals you for a small percentage if you pass through them, but instead of just running around to grab them, Soul Cleave absorbs them all immediately, and with the trait Erupting Souls, it also increases the damage per Soul Fragment. Now, you always want to build as much Soul Fragments as you possibly can, for a variety of reasons. More healing, more damage due to the trait as said before, but you also have 2 other traits. Fueled by Pain that has a chance to turn you into meta per Soul Fragment consumed, boosting your armor, health, and pain generation. The other is Painbringer, reducing your damage taken by 3% for 4 seconds per soul fragment, meaning you always want at least 3 to 5 fragments before using Soul Cleave to get the most out of it. And the buffs: higher chance for the meta, for the damage, for the healing, and for the damage reduction. All of those things combined will lead to a much better mitigation. That said, that would be in a perfect world, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you generate too much pain or you take too much damage. Well, first thing is not to panic. One of the basic rules is to never let your resources overcap. If you're reaching close to the cap or already capped, don't let it just sit around. Waste all of that pain and generate it back in case you need it. If not, just use it again for the damage. Now, using your Soul Cleave below 60 pain is really not going to do much unless you have at least 5 fragments laying around for the other buffs to come into play. The difference between the 30 pain heal to a 60 pain heal is quite large. So again, don't panic, build up your pain and soul fragments, then use Soul Cleave. Another basic rule is to always check: do I have enough pain? Do I have a good amount of soul fragments? And do I need the heal? If so, use it. If I don't, save it and use it when at max pain or whenever is needed. Preferably, you want to use it when below 80 to 70% HP, depending on the situation that you're going to have to analyze by yourself. Even though using Soul Cleave with soul fragments is good, as said before, it's not a must. If you're in danger, using a solo Soul Cleave with 60 pain will still be good. Don't deprive yourself from not using it just because you have no fragments. But you do have Soul Carver and may also have Fracture to build fragments on demand, but more on that in a bit. Managing those two resources will be the first step into being a good tank in the Vengeance spec. The other reason not to panic is Demon Spikes. It's your main active mitigation ability, on top of your healing. It's off your GCD, so it gives you a more leeway to use it. It has 2 charges and lasts for 6 seconds, reducing your physical damage taken increased by mastery and your parry chance by 20%. And you want to use it to fill the gaps, if you will, during your building up of pain and soul fragments phase, or just when there's a lot of damage going on, or to prevent a portion of an incoming damage, such as those castable abilities from most dungeon bosses. So basically meaning you want to always keep it active as much as you can, but always have one charge ready for emergencies or specific abilities, or simply whenever you see that you are taking way too much physical damage or that you can prevent it by predicting it. So it gives you an easier time to build pain and fragments so you can self-heal after, keeping up a smooth mitigation. Along with that, you also have Empower Wards, which simply reduces magic damage taken. Pretty straightforward, use it whenever necessary. And Fiery Brand. Now this one works as both a damage ability and as a mitigation ability, as it does fire damage over time and increases all fire damage taken to the target due to your traits. And remember that your other trait, Share Red Warblades, you heal 50% of the fire damage that you do, so you're going to get a small dot healing per se, plus the target branded will deal 40% less damage to you. And you really want to save it to soak up some big damage or as an emergency cooldown, working best in bosses due to its single target component. On top of that, you have your Flaming Soul trait that will increase the duration of Fiery Brand by 0.5 seconds when Soul Carver or Immolation Aura does damage, so remember to have those abilities ready to be used in combo. Your artifact ability, on the other hand, is more of a preparation type. It does fire damage, so again it will heal you for 50% of the damage it does, plus gives 2 soul fragments and another 3 over the course of 3 seconds. So the way you want to use it is in preparation for a powerful Soul Cleave heal, meaning you can use it in multiple scenarios. One is knowing that some big damage is coming up and you want to get the maximum amount of healing that you can. So knowing that, you can use it beforehand and be prepared for the damage and then recover with a big chunk of your HP right away. The other way is, let's say you had 4 fragments and you just used on a soul cleave, but that wasn't enough to keep you up with the amount of damage you're taking. So after that soul cleave, you use Soul Carver, getting all of those fragments, then Shear to build up pain while it ticks, then soul cleave again with the 5 fragments for some really good healing. Essentially, this ability is giving you more easy and more powerful heals in a short amount of time if used correctly. Best tip I can give is think ahead before using your Soul Carver ability. Try to know what's going to happen in a fight and what you're going to need and act accordingly. Also remember that your soul fragments cap at 5, so you don't really want to overcap them. They don't go underused, but still it's something that you want to try and avoid from happening. Now, your big dick cooldown, Metamorphosis. You want to save it for very specific situations. During most fights you're going to get the 6-second version one, which works all the same. 100% more armor, 30% more HP, and pain generation passively. That can lead to more soul cleaves and demon spikes and obviously more damage mitigated. So save it for moments where all of your abilities and your heals and healers are having a hard time keeping up and you in a risk of dying, seriously helping your survivability. With all of that said, you still have your AoE and utility-based abilities, and your AoE in Vengeance needs to be well managed, just like your resources, because you don't have a specific AoE ability that you can spam, so it's something to be careful on. Basically meaning you have 3 abilities to manage well: Infernal Strike, Immolation Aura, and Sigil of Flame. Infernal Strike is both your movement and AoE ability in a small area, but it will fit in your rotation for that extra damage, and is the ability you're probably going to use to initially pull and grab aggro. Then you have your Immolation Aura, doing damage all around your character and generating pain, so basically your aggro holder for multiple enemies or to simply grab a pack of mobs as you walk across. Then you have your Sigil of Flame, being in a longer cooldown is mostly used as a damage booster, but you can do a lot with it, such as pulling in a big area from a distance and predict where ads will appear to immediately place the sigil in that specific area and grabbing them immediately. Now the reason you want to manage those abilities well is that all of them have cooldowns. You do have 2 charges out of Infernal Strike, but if you use those abilities without thinking, there might be moments where an extra pack is pulled and you just have nothing to grab them except your single target abilities, leading to very awkward moments. To prevent that from happening, you always want to have one of those abilities ready to be used at all times, especially a charge of Infernal Strike or Sigil of Flame, as Immolation Aura you want to keep active as much as you can for the pain it gives off. But remember that your Throw Glaive, for an example, also hits 3 targets, so might come in handy in certain packs. The same follows for Soul Cleave. As the name says it, it cleaves all nearby targets for some good damage, but can also sometimes work to grab that extra pack of mobs that just entered the fray, and all of your other abilities are on cooldown. Also remember that fire damage heals you, so all of those AoE abilities said will heal you for that 50% of the damage done, as they are all fire based, so you want to use them even in single target. Plus the pain from Immolation Aura. That said, you have 2 other sigils that you want to make the most out of: Sigil of Misery and Sigil of Silence, adding an AoE fear and silence. A big part of your job as a tank is mob control, and those 2 abilities do improve it by a great margin in certain situations. There's a lot of casters, just use a Sigil of Silence and then you can pull all enemies together for cleave and AoE, and of course prevent those abilities from going off. The same thing follows for Sigil of Misery. The fear it gives off can be useful even if those mobs are in combat, as it will interrupt casts or abilities for that less than a second fear, once again adding more mob control. That covers about everything. Now that your spec is nicely understood of what all of your abilities do and when and how they should be used, we can move on to your talents and then just do a quick recap on your rotation, if you will. So, your talents, again, all of them are perfectly viable, except for blade turning, due to its unpredictability. But let's just ask some basic questions first. If I'm going to do a dungeon or a Mythic Plus, what should I choose to improve my experience? I don't feel comfortable yet to go more on an offensive route, so I want a good balance of everything. Okay, so on tier 1 you have Agonizing Flames or Abyssal Strike. Both will do you great in dungeon content and will depend on your own personal choice. Do you want more frequent and further range Infernal Strikes for more AoE damage and consistent and faster pulls, or do you feel what you have is enough and prefer to have an improved Immolation Aura doing 30% more damage and giving you some mobility, and in turn extra healing as again fire damage heals you? I personally prefer Abyssal Strike, but that's on you. On tier 2, Fallout will fare you better for a more balanced playstyle, as the Immolation Aura initial hit has a chance to spawn soul fragments per target hit. As we talked before, more soul fragments equals more healing and all those juicy buffs. In dungeons, you're going to take the most advantage out of this talent, as you're going to always hit multiple enemies in trash packs. Next tier is Flame Crash, will provide you the most usefulness in dungeon content, as every time you jump with Infernal Strike, where you land is going to create a sigil of flame, increasing your damage, in turn aggro and healing, along with grabbing mobs that weren't damaged by the jump itself, but were nearby. It combines really well with the tier 1 talent Abyssal Strike for more frequent uses. Then is Fracture. Soul Rending can be good, but currently you're really not going to take that much out of it. Fracture, on the other hand, mixes another ability into your roster, costing 20 pain. The best way to use it is in a similar way to Soul Carver, used in preparation. But it costs pain, meaning when you have extra pain that you can spend and you're really not needing the Soul Cleave for heals, you can just spam Fracture, getting more fragments in the process and damage, but obviously you can use in preparation for some big damage that might come up, getting those 5 soul fragments much more easier for a powerful Soul Cleave or Soul Barrier. More on that in a bit. Especially when the RNG gods are failing you with your shears and you have Soul Carver on cooldown. Just be careful on wasting too much pain and then needing a Soul Cleave quickly and having none. This way you're going to get a lot more fragments, making Fracture your go-to talent for practically every situation. After is on you. Personally, I prefer Quickened Sigils for faster cooldowns and activation. It combines well with Flame Crash, and when you're needing to use Sigil of Flame to pull that extra pack of mobs that was just pulled. This way it activates faster, so there isn't that fear that the activation time might miss. Concentrated Sigil does improve your Sigil of Flame duration and in turn damage, which again combines well with Flame Crash, but it removes the ability to place them, in turn removing the potential to use it as a pulling ability or a grab ability. As for its Sigil of Chains, is like the outcast sibling of Gorfin's Grasp. It's about the same, but it's just worse, as you are very limited on its area of use, but can work fine sometimes. Once again, pick whatever you personally feel that you need. Then, Fell Devastation provides a solid DPS gain and pretty good burst healing. So you would want to use it whenever you're needing that emergency healing. Remember that combining it with Fiery Brand, which due to the trait increases fire damage, will increase its healing potential. Then finally Soul Barrier, which is a pretty interesting talent, combining perfectly with Fracture and Fallout, and changing a little bit of your ability thinking. The way it works is similar to Soul Cleave, but instead of damage and heal, you get a shield. Its power depending on the soul fragments you absorbed. Now, in those 12 seconds, the shield cannot disappear, but as you take damage, it goes weaker, but it can be repowered, meaning to use Soul Barrier, you need to have some preparation beforehand, between Soul Carvers and Fractures. So you want to have at least 5 fragments first, then during those 12 seconds you want to quickly build fragments again to repower it as it takes damage, and continue to absorb set damage. To do this easily, you want to have Soul Carver ready to build them, then building Pain if necessary, then when around half of its duration, or whenever the shield is at a minimum, absorb the fragments with Soul Cleave to give its power back. Preferably, Soul Barrier works best against magic damage, but can also prevent a lot of physical damage to little cost. All around, this build has a bit of everything: survivability, better AoE, damage, and mobility. But now let's assume that you are going on an offensive route and you want to do more damage, or the complete opposite, you're looking for extra survivability and very little DPS gain. For the damage-based one, on the first tier, same rules as previously apply, or if you're feeling fancy, Razor Spikes can be good if you combine abilities such as Soul Cleave and Fracture for the 20% damage boost on physical abilities, saving up the pain to then use Demon Spikes and just waste all of that pain on Fracture during those 6 seconds, getting some pretty good damage. On tier 2, Burning Alive can provide a big DPS increase for the AoE with Fiery Brand that spreads every 2 seconds to nearby targets, but can only spread one at a time. Then you can combine it with other fire abilities for the damage boost it gives off, but Fallout will still be good due to a later talent choice. Next year, Flame Crash will still be good, but Fell Eruption will provide the biggest DPS increase, especially for single target. Then Fracture, again, is still your go-to. Now, here you have Spirit Bomb, is another very interesting talent. It uses Soul Fragment to AoE all nearby targets and applying a dot, healing you for 20% of all the damage done to those targets, meaning it gives off a big DPS increase in AoE such as in a dungeon, but will remove a big portion of your mitigation as you're going to have to waste those fragments for damage instead of healing yourself. The 20% helps, but isn't as good. This is why you only should take it if you feel confident that you can trade that for damage. It combines really well with Fallout for the immediate soul fragments at the startup of the fight when you use Immolation Aura, and you essentially just use your soul fragments to do damage whenever you have them with Spirit Bomb, mixing in Shears, Soul Cleaves, and Fractures, plus Demon Spikes for the physical damage boost with Razor Spikes if you so happen to have it. Remember that Spirit Bomb does do fire damage, so also can combine really well with the AoE from Fiery Brand with the Burning Alive talent, okay? Lastly, Demonic Infusion. At first, it's a defensive talent, and technically it is, but it gives off 60 pain, which equals more abilities used, which equals more damage. Plus, Demon Spike Refresh works great with Razor Spikes. Now, for the defensive playstyle, everything stays as previously from the more balanced build. The differences are the extra focus on Demon Spikes and pain generation for the extra soul cleaves, such as taking Fellblade, fitting easily in fights for that extra pain. Feed the demon for the cooldown reduction of Demon Spikes on the consumption of soul fragments, and Demonic Infusion for the extra Demon Spikes and the 60 pain that can give you a free soul cleave, and more damage mitigated through said Demon Spikes. Although, that really only works if it's a physical intensive fight. If you're going to face magical enemies and you want more defense, Soul Barrier with Fracture will be best. As for rating, you probably want to focus more on single target, taking exception in some fights. So on the first tier, either talent will work as we went through previously. Pick whatever will work best for you, even Razor Spikes. On tier 2, Feast on the Soul will provide the best healing. The other two really only work for multiple targets, so useless in a lot of boss fights. But if there's AoE, consider taking one of them instead. Next, Fellblade will work best for single target, but you can still take Flame Crash for the DPS increase, especially if there's AoE and you're really not needing the extra pain Fellblade gives off. Just to edit something in that I forgot, currently the tier 20 set bonus from Tomb of Stargaras is giving a big boost to Sigil of Flame, adding a 5% damage reduction and 2k versatility while it's active. And by that I mean the dot damage, making so taking Flame Crash with Abyssal Strike a very powerful choice to take for every situation with said tier set, as then you can maintain Sigil of Flame active almost constantly. But that said, that may change in the future. After each fracture, then concentrated sigils will work best for bosses where placing sigils in other areas are not needed. And you can just click it and will immediately pop up. If you need to place them in other locations, take Quickened Sigil. After, Fell Devastation for the burst healing, and then finally the last tier will depend on a fight. Soul Barrier will work best for magic damage, where Demon Spikes are going to be worthless. Demonic Infusion, on the other hand, for high physical intensive fights, or last resort if progressing or in fear of dying to a certain mechanic. And that covers about it all. Remember, there's tons of choices you can make. You can mix up a lot of talents, even other options that I didn't set here for the sake of time. But I covered the main ones and explained all of the talents and abilities, so it's up to you now when you should use them. Now, as a summary for everything, learn to manage your pain and soul fragments well. That is your first step. Knowing when to properly use soul cleaves or soul barriers if with a talent, along with abilities like soul carver and fracture as said previously. Build pain and soul fragments and waste that pain and soul fragments accordingly to what's going on and what's going to happen in that certain fight. Use Demon Spikes as much as possible against physical hitting enemies, but have one charge always ready if in need. You never want to be in a position where you're taking too much damage and you have no pain or mitigation abilities to use. If you manage well, that will never happen. As for AoE, remember to quickly grab aggro with Infernal Strike and then Immolation Aura, but like Demon Spikes, try to always have either a charge of Infernal Strike or a Sigil of Flame in case of a next enemy pack is pulled, as you lack on-demand AoE. Also remember that you have other useful sigils and even Throwglaive if in need. Keep always in mind that Fire-based abilities heals you, so remember to use it as much as you can, but not overruling previous rules. Use Sigil of Flame and Immolation even for single target. Immolation Aura also gives you pain, so you want to keep it active as much as you can, and combine Fire-based abilities, especially powerful ones like Fell Devastation, with Fiery Brand for the damage and in turn healing boost, and increasing Fiery Brand duration with Soul Carver and Immolation Aura. Have them off cooldown before using it due to the trait, unless if in danger and you need it quickly, okay? So stats will depend on what build and what you are focusing, survivability or just good balance, or even damage. My advice overall is if you are a player that does both raiding and dungeons, focus on mastery and versatility, then haste and crit. If raiding and having trouble, try to stack more of that versatility for the extra survivability. Mastery stacks up well with Demon Spikes, but remember that Demon Spikes is worthless for magic-based enemies, so in a lot of situations is a waste of a stat. Hence, versatility sometimes may outweigh it, especially in Nighthold where there's a lot of magic damage. As for gems, stack up mastery or versatility depending on what you're needing. The same goes for enchants. Neck enchant though should be Mark of the Heavy Hide. And that covers about it all. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions regarding the Vengeance Demon Hunter, feel free to leave them down below. Subscribe and like for more guides. Have fun guys, and see ya.